Hey there drone fans, Rick here again from Drone Valley. Today I'm outside in a park near my home to do an unboxing of a brand new drone that's just about to hit the market called the Evolve from xDynamics. Now I do a lot of unboxing clips on the channel, and for me they tend to get a little boring because I'm sitting at a desk, tearing open a box, pulling out cables and batteries and power supplies, talking about the technology. So I thought today, why don't I make it a little bit more exciting? I'll take this thing out to a field, I'll unbox it live, and I'll introduce the element of danger. Now, I'm in a state park, which means about 300 yards to the right of me, there's a gun range. You're gonna hear guns being fired over there. I saw a couple of hunters wandering in the woods that way. I don't have any idea what's gonna happen over there. They could scare deer out. Maybe they'll run behind me. That would be kind of cool. And then down that end of the field a couple of weeks ago, they spotted some bear. Now I'm thinking, how amazing would it be if I'm sitting here talking to you and over my shoulder a giant bear is approaching me and I get mauled on camera? That would be YouTube gold, so that would go viral for sure. So let's hope none of that happens, but you'll hear a lot of natural sounds in the background, and for all I know, this could be the world's first outdoor unboxing that's ever taken place. All right, so let's talk about the drone, because that's kind of why we're here. A little bit about the company. So xDynamics is one of the companies we met a couple of months ago when we went to CES out in Las Vegas, and when you go to those kind of shows, there's 100 companies that have drones on the floor, and when you go booth to check them out, you'll find out pretty quickly that most of the drones are really similar. There's not a lot of exciting things going on outside of the big players. So they're underpowered, they don't fly very long, they've got really terrible cameras on them, so you get bored after a while, and it wasn't until I stumbled across the xDynamics booth, which quite honestly was way in the back corner, that I realized they may be onto something really unique with this drone. And then I spent a lot of time talking to their engineers, asking all the hard questions you guys are going to want to have answered. And they not only had answers for them, but they could explain why they ended at that conclusion and what they thought about when they were building this stuff in. And after I spent some time with them, I realized they're flyers as well, and they're cinematographers, and they built the drone that they'd love to fly. And they've really thought of every aspect of it. So it isn't a drone that's put together from a bunch of parts and they just put a shiny new cabinet around it. It's really a drone that was built from the ground up to be one of the best drones on the market today. Now, just to set the stage of where this fits in the drone hierarchy, if you will, if we're talking about DJI, it's better than a Phantom, and it's under an Inspire. So it's right between the Phantom and the Inspire as far as pricing and features and functions go. So I'm gonna unbox it, but when I'm done with the unboxing, I'm gonna go back to the shop and I'll give you a much more in-depth understanding of exactly what all the features and functions are of the particular drone. So before I tear open the box, and again, I haven't played with it live. I did see it at the show. I had a chance to handle it there, but this will be the first time I've actually gotten my hands on it in the wild. But let me talk a little bit about some of the features that stand out. So the first thing is the frame itself is all carbon fiber. It's a very light frame, very durable frame. A lot of companies claim to have carbon fiber frames, but what they mean is they've got a little bit of carbon fiber in amongst the plastic. So it's more of an integrated drone than a pure carbon fiber drone. This one's a pure carbon fiber drone, so it's built to be incredibly stable. The second thing is they've introduced a new transport topology between the drone and the controller that delivers zero latency, or near zero latency, for 1080p streaming, which is absolutely incredible, because when you're flying this at a distance and you're watching FPV, if there's any kind of delay between the signal getting back to you and what's going on with the drone, you could be flying into a bush, but here you don't see that yet because the signal hasn't gotten back to you. So the fact that it's got near zero latency with a 1080p resolution means you're getting amazing quality back at the controller. They're the world's first, and I think they've got a patent on this, dual screen controller. So when I open this thing up later, I'll show you the controller. When you flip it open, has a 7-inch screen on the top and a 5.5-inch screen down the bottom. You can see FPV up here and you can do your controls from the bottom. It's absolutely astounding. So you don't need to bring a tablet or a phone or anything. You just fly with that controller. They have a smart piloting system which involves a ton of sensors, a lot of brains and intelligence, a lot of dual things like IMU and compass and barometer. All that stuff is redundant inside there. Then the last thing I'll talk about is they're one of the few drones, in this price range especially, but a few drones in general, that use a new technology called LiDAR, which is light radar. And I'll go into depth on that later in one of the clips that I'm going to put together. But what it means is that this drone can paint a 3D picture of the landscape around it. It also uses VIO, but it's got LiDAR, which actually gives it a really smart awareness of what it's doing and what it's around so that it doesn't crash into stuff. All right, enough about that. Let me get into this thing because I'm dying to get a look at it. All right, so this thing's taped up pretty good. I don't know whether it got roughed up in the transport or what. The box is kind of banged up, but I'm just glad it's here and I'm hoping it's in one piece. Looks like it's been taped about 4 times. I'll bet the shipment guys probably wanted to see what was inside there. All right, so let's open it up. Let's see. Oh, it's got a case. All right, so I didn't know it had a case. So it comes with a beautiful case. Let me get this thing out of here. Oh, holy smokes. All right, let's get that guy out of the way. So the manual, which may be mine, now this is pre-production or it's actually early production, so I got one that was one of the first ones shipped to the US. I don't think there's a lot of these out there for review yet, but I'll go through it in detail. But I've got a 3-ring binder with all the specifications inside there, and again, as a nerd, man, I love stuff like this. So I'm going to tear into that in a little bit. Let me just set that aside while I open up this case. So let's see what's inside the case. I can't wait to get in here. All right, so I'm obviously opening it wrong. Let me flip it that way. So let me talk about the case first. Now this does look like a monster case. You're looking at this thinking, I'm thinking immediately Ninja Turtles. I could put this thing on, I'm gonna look like a Ninja Turtle, which is probably okay, but when you have a drone of this size, like a Phantom 5 or Phantom 4 drone, you need a case this big to carry it around, and you have two choices. You can go with a hard case and carry it like a suitcase, or you get some kind of backpack like this where I strap it on my back and get to a location that's pretty remote. It is big, but I like it. The other thing I asked them about at the show was that this is crush proof, meaning once I take the drone out of it, I can put it on the ground and actually use it as a seat, which is so cool. So it's got double use. All right, so let's open it up. Oh man, here we go. All right, so basic instructions, tells you exactly what's going on with the drone, kind of cool. So it's a quick start guide. Then there's the drone. Oh, there's the drone. Here are the batteries. Let me get those out of the way first. Okay, so pretty good sized batteries. And again, I'll give you a much clearer view of this when we get back to the shop. Let's get the drone out. Oh man, oh man. Oh man, oh man. All right, there's the drone. Now your first thought's gonna be, sort of Phantom-like. I mean, obviously they're hard to be radically different, but there's so much different about this drone. So the carbon fiber for starters, the motors are oversized. Another thing is 90% of what's in this drone is built by these guys. They don't shop it out. It's not like they're buying motors from this guy and an ESC from that guy and a power supply from that guy. They even wind their own motors, which is pretty incredible in today's age, because most quads that are out there buy off-the-shelf motors, slap them in the drone, they buy somebody else's ESC and they're off and flying. These guys build all that into it. But I love the profile of this. It's got a bit of an attitude to it. It looks like it's leaning down, sort of like coming at you, bro. And then it's got the camera on the front. Now this camera here is a 1/2.3 sensor. And I know we pick on them an awful lot, and I probably should pick on this one a little bit too, but that's not where it ends, because the cameras are removable. So the entire gimbal assembly comes off, which is something that I thought they're onto something. Because one of the complaints I had about some of the DJI products was when you buy it, you're stuck with the camera that's glued to the actual drone. Only if you go to the Inspire can you start swapping out cameras. Now there may be something coming, who knows, from DJI, but these guys have it today. So when I talk to the representatives, it starts with the 1/2.3. They've got a 4/3 camera coming. They've got a FLIR camera coming and a bunch of other platforms that they're considering. So when you buy this platform to fly, you can change out the cameras to fit your needs, which is really, really nice. All right, so there's the drone. Starting to get a little crowded here, and I'm gonna spend a lot of time with this back at the shop. When you get to the remote. Oh man, so there's the remote. Give me a second. And what else is in here? All right, we got blades. Really nice. They packed the blades in a really specialized carrier there for the blades. And we've got some connections here. Looks like cabling. All right, that's pretty cool. Pre-flight kits, so they give you some instructions there on what you should do before you take off. I've got, what have I got here? Micro USB cables, because the access to the memory internally is micro USB. And I've got a power supply and charger. And it looks like I can charge the remote and the batteries at the same time. So, all right, let me zip this guy up and get him out of the way so I can look at this stuff a little bit more closely, because man, this looks cool. I tell you, it's got a real, I don't know how to describe it drone-wise. I'm fascinated with this drone because the profile of this, when it's flying, it's got the side legs here. It's got a curve to it. It almost looks like it's an eagle coming down to grab something. It's got these talons coming off the side. And the way it's leaning forward just puts that camera in the perfect angle to get at that image you need, to be able to sort of, you know, negotiate it where you need to get it with a downward angle, which is pretty nice. All right, so here's the power supply, I'm sorry, the controller. Now, I was blown away by this. This is what actually drew me to the booth before I even saw the quad. Let me open this up for you and show you what it looks like. How cool is that? How incredible is that? So again, large screen up top, smaller screen down the bottom. Everything you need to do is right here. You don't need a phone or a tablet or any kind of external device. Everything that's needed to fly this quad, you power this up, you power up the quad, and you're off and flying. What I like again about that is that a lot of the quads nowadays are starting to go to these integrated controllers. DJI had one on their Phantom 4 Pro version 2. Actually, the original Phantom 4 Pro Plus had it as well. We know that the Evo came out with one. There's rumors there's one coming for the Mavic 2. We haven't seen it yet, but what's different about this one is it's not just an integrated controller. It's got two displays, two actual digital displays that are image displays. So you're watching your field of view here, your flight view here, and you're watching your heuristics down the bottom. So very incredibly cool. So that's pretty much everything that comes in the box. And again, I'm going to do a much more detailed discussion about the quad, the remote, and some of the features that set it apart. But what you get here is a pretty complete kit for everything you need to use and carry when you're out in the field. So again, they're flyers, right? So they're thinking about, how do I get it to site? How do I get it home? Can I improve some specifics on the drone? Can I make it lighter? Can I build the motors bigger? Can I have better flight controls? Why don't we build LiDAR in, which is, again, a unique technology? Oh, and by the way, the controllers up till now have been kind of not fully complete because they've got to use a tablet, which may or may not work. Why don't we build a controller that allows them to see their FPV view as well as their metrics for their flight and the characteristics of their telemetry all in one controller? Unbelievably cool. So stay tuned and we'll head back to the shop and I'll give you a much closer view of all these components. Before I left the field for the day, I wanted to give you an idea what it's like to wear the backpack. Now, I've got everything loaded up in there. I've got the drone, the controller, the power supply, the 2 batteries, the manuals, the cables, everything you need to use the drone. And I've been walking around the field quite a bit to get a sense of my balance, because the one thing I always worry about when I put something heavy on my back is that if it's not weighted correctly, it's going to throw my balance off to one side or the other. And if I take it out into a rugged environment where I'm walking up a hill and there's loose gravel or roots that I have to negotiate, if my balance is off a little bit, I'm going to stumble. So I can tell you without question that they've done an excellent job of balancing this side to side. So it makes me think that whoever designed the backpack really spent a lot of time thinking about the weight distribution inside that styrofoam to balance out the side to side. Now, it is heavy because there's a lot of gear in there, but I don't find it unduly pulling me back, and the reason for that is because most of the weight is concentrated right in my lower back, which is exactly where I want it. So my balance pretty much in every direction is really, really nice. And the other thing I like about it, now I'm kind of a broad-shouldered guy, so I'm a little bit husky, but you'll notice the backpack doesn't stick out beyond my shoulders, and that's important because if I'm going up a tight trail, I'm going to push the stuff out of the way and it's not going to get snagged on the trees or the bramble on either side. The alternative is I'm using a hard case and I'm carrying it like a suitcase. I'm going to be dragging that through all of the briar and all the sticky bushes and everything else that's up there, so it's going to hit everything. So I like the fact that this is kind of contained on my back. Now, I know that when you're looking at it from the side, you're probably thinking right now, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Rick. That's what you look like. And you know what? I don't even care. You can make all the jokes you want, because sticks and stones, I'm going down the far end of that field and I'm going to put this guy up here and fly the drone. The other advantage, which I love, is the fact that it's a seat. So when I get down to the far end of that field, I'm going to be out of wind and I'm going to want to sit down and fly the drone. I can zip this guy up, put it down on the ground, sit down on it, and fly that drone to my heart's content. So stay tuned and we'll head back to the shop. Well, I'm back at the shop. And the good news is, outside of about 1,000 mosquito bites that I'm still scratching, and a strange encounter with some varmint scurrying around that tall grass the whole time I was out there, keeping me on my toes, I made it back here relatively unscathed. Now, I'm going to mark that first outdoor unboxing as a total success, and now that I'm back in the relative safety of the shop, I'm going to take a breath and point out some of the key features that separate the quad, the ground station, and the software, really the whole package, from other quads in the marketplace. But before I get too deep into the specifications, I just want to spend a minute and talk about the team from xDynamics that built this Evolve quad, because it's a really unique story and one that I found very interesting. So unlike a lot of companies today that see the drone market exploding and it's kind of a gold rush where they want to get some product in there that flies so they can capture some of that coin, these guys started from scratch to build this quad. Now, a lot of other competing companies that are new to the market really just kind of look at the quads that are out there and then build one that looks the same. So they'll go to company A to buy the flight controller, company B to buy the power supplies, maybe company C will build the motor and the propellers. They'll put it together in some shiny cabinet, put a snappy marketing campaign together, and sell a lot of product out into the space. They don't really understand quads in general. What's different about the guys from xDynamics is the team over there was formed with the express purpose of building a different drone. They weren't going out in the market to compete with the Phantom or the Unique or the Autel. They weren't even looking at those products. They were really a hardcore group of people that were geeks and nerds and engineers, that were aerial people. They were photography people. They were engineers that understood the mechanics and the physics behind it. And they were looking to build a new product that was different in the marketplace. So it isn't a direct competitor to anything. It sort of fits in that continuum of quads, somewhere between the Phantom and, say, the Inspire product. So it's a little bit better than a prosumer product, and it's right at the bottom of that professional space. And I think it can actually move into the professional space with some of the cameras that are coming. So that's really the design behind it. And I love that because when I was in the booth talking to them, I was asking a lot of hard questions, and I tend to get very excited when I talk about technology, and I noticed they were getting really excited answering the questions, so I could tell that we were on the same wavelength. And to be honest, I've spent a couple of weeks with this product, and I'm really looking at every little detail and nuance, and every time I turn a corner on some of the technology in this product, I find something that delights me and surprises me. So good on you guys at xDynamics for the product you put together. And I promise you that this is going to be a very high level clip where I'm going to talk about some of the key features. I will come back and go into much more depth around the quad, the ground station, the software, all the stuff you guys care about. But I just wanted to point out a couple things that I think are really cool about the product. So with the quad itself, let's start with the airframe. It's not like you can build a radically different airframe, because if you're building a fixed airframe quad like this, you're going to have feet that hit the ground. You're going to have 4 propellers or 6 propellers up. So there's not a lot they could do with it. But as I mentioned before when I unboxed it, this thing's got an attitude. It's got sort of a forward cant. It's got wide arms on it. It almost looks like a hawk or a falcon coming down that's grabbing something in the field. That wasn't by accident. They actually looked at this and said, how do we increase our field of view? If we're cinematographers, we want to get as wide a field of view out the front as possible. So let's build an airframe that's durable, number one, and unique in the space. So the composition of this is pure carbon fiber. Now that's unique in the space as well, because most of the quads that are out there that claim to be carbon fiber are really plastic with some strands of carbon fiber mixed in, so they're more composite than they are pure carbon fiber. This is 100% carbon fiber. They built this thing, again, from scratch to be a fully carbon fiber frame, which means you've got the highest strength to weight ratio out there. It's very light and extremely strong. The only piece on here that's not carbon fiber is the plastic cover up here. The reason that's plastic is because the GPS is under there, the transmitters, the receivers, so they don't want to block any of that transmission out of the unit. But everything else is really built to be robust. The other thing they did that was really unique, and this has been a pet peeve of mine for a while, is they built in a removable gimbal and camera assembly. Now that is incredibly cool, because one of the complaints I have most quads that are on the market today is when I buy them, I'm stuck with whatever camera is glued to that quad. So maybe it's a state-of-the-art camera today, but if I keep the quad 3 or 4 years, there'll be something new coming out that's cooler. I gotta buy a whole new quad to get that camera. Why couldn't you make it simple enough for me to unscrew the camera, screw another camera in at a price point like this quad is being offered? So the fact that I can unscrew the camera, very simply just loosen a collar and pop the camera off, pop another camera on, means this thing is really the perfect flying platform that's upgradable down the road. Now, it's coming initially with a 1/2.3 sensor, and I know I picked on that sensor an awful lot, but they've got an awesome, incredibly insane lensing system on here that really improves the quality of that image. But the fact that it's a removable camera, and they've got a 4/3 sensors coming, they've got a FLIR coming, they've got a bunch of other cameras they're working on, means I can pick the right camera to snap onto this platform for the particular scene I'm trying to capture. So don't feel bad that it's a 1/2 sensor to start. It's a fantastic image. It's just that you've got that upgradability down the road to put a bigger sensor on there as those come out. So I love the future proofing of it. I mentioned before the field of view. Because these arms are way out like this, you get a 94-degree field of view on the front, which is a very expansive landscape that you can take in through that field of view. Now, to compare that to some of the quads out there with the straighter arms, I guess the closest one would be a Phantom 4 Pro V2. That's got an 84-degree field of view. So you get an extra 10 degrees of field of view, and that again is because of the expansion of the frame. So that's pretty cool. The one thing I love about this, and I really, it's very subjective, and I can't put it into numbers, but they built this thing to have a cinematographer's personality when you're flying. So you'll find that it's buttery smooth in its movements. It's really ratcheted down a little bit as far as its response to the joystick. So when you pan, it's coming around nice and smooth. When you're flying in, you've got that nice, silky smooth kind of movements through the air. And that just gives you that beautiful cinematography feel. And I know you can make adjustments to other quads to do that, but I find most of the quads out of the box have a very jerky kind of a turn or a pan or a zoom, that type of thing. When you're coming in against something, they're just very jerky, and it's obvious you've got drone footage there. With this one, it feels to me like a much more expensive quad, because I fly the Inspire 2, which is a professional level quad, and that has a different feel to it. It's much more cinematic. This has that cinematic feel, but at a much lower price. So I love the fact that they took the time to make the adjustments in advance to the quad to give me that sort of buttery smooth movements inside the quad. One other thing I want to point out, and again, as a geek, I love this kind of stuff. So they've got an intelligent battery. Everybody's talking about intelligent batteries today, so it's smart enough to know what kind of charge and control the charge, control the discharge, tell the quad how much is left. So what I like about it, though, is it's really smarter than the average smart battery, so I might even call it a brilliant battery. And one little doodad I like on this is most of the batteries, I know this is just me, and I'm geeking out here, but most of the batteries have like 4 bars that tell you 25, 50, 75, 100. This one actually is a digital readout to tell you exactly how much capacity is left in the battery. And I know that's a small thing, and we can rough it, but I don't know, it's just kind of cool. So there's 100 of those things in this quad. All right, so let's talk about the controller first. Now, it should be obvious looking at this thing that it's different than anything on the market. So it's a patented, the first one I think on the market, dual screen controller. You don't need to bring anything with you. You take this out in the field, you power it up. You've got a field of view up here, or your FPV view up here, first person view of exactly what you see through the camera. So again, if you're a cinematographer, that's exactly what you want so you can frame that shot perfectly. You have all your telemetry and flight data down the bottom. So, and this is a touch screen, this isn't, but it's a 7-inch screen up top. This is a 5-inch screen down the bottom. The one thing I'm going to point out about this top screen, though, is it's not your average screen. It's 1,000 nits, which is pretty much what you're buying at a Crystal Sky monitor. So in this ground station, you're not only getting your telemetry and flight control, which would normally be your phone or your tablet, but you're getting a first-person view up top on a 1,000-nit display, which means you can see it in bright sunlight. So they've really thought this thing through from every angle. It also has, and I'll spend a lot of time going through the software, a tremendous amount of editing software in the bottom that you can do edits on it live. You can live stream if you want to the popular platforms out there as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection. So they've really built this to be not only the ability to capture the footage, but to edit the footage and actually put the footage out there in the world where people can see it, which is nice. Micro HD external connections on it too, which is another pet peeve of mine. A lot of the controllers don't have an external monitor connection. This one does. Also, this thing is built like a tank, and I've become a fan of these dedicated controllers over the last couple of years because by making an enclosed system like this, you can really control the user experience better, and you can build the processors and everything else to sort of flatter the application. In this case, you've got a quad-core 64-bit processor, which is a whole lot of power inside there, but you also have a graphical processing unit to handle all the telemetry data and the first-person view. So what you're getting here is a 1080p live view from that quad at a distance, which is incredibly cool. The other thing is the transmission in the system. The system in this is upgraded, which means you're getting an almost instantaneous view of that quad. And I'll give you a feel for how instantaneous it is. There's a 10 millisecond or less response time between what the quad sees and what you're seeing on the controller. Now, if I look at other quads out there, they're in the hundreds of milliseconds. And I'm not going to pick on anybody in this case, but I just compared it to another popular quad a minute ago when I talked about field of view. If I look at that product, their response times or their delay is about 160 milliseconds. So 16 times as slow, which means if I'm flying this thing, I'm seeing something that took place a long time ago in millisecond terms. So the fact that it's incredibly responsive and fast means I'm seeing pretty much exactly what's happening on the camera end. Then the last thing is it's got a lot of sophistication built into it for automation. So if you're a cinematographer and maybe you're not that great a flyer and you're learning how to fly, you can punch in a bunch of waypoints, tell it how high you want, tell it what direction you want it to shoot, how long it should film, and you can actually map out a location map of where you want this thing to take the shots from. So if you're going to do maybe home photography for real estate purposes, you can pick 4 corners or cardinal points on that map of the house and have it take the pictures from wherever you want. So they've built in a ton of intelligence and autonomy into it as well. And again, I'll come back and talk about that at length. So for me, it's interesting because it's not just another quad. And it's not just like, oh, isn't this cool? Maybe it's a competitor. This is a radically new design from the ground up, and I was very excited to see it at the show, and even more excited that I've got it in my hands. So expect me to have this thing up in the air an awful lot over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to do a ton more clips, but I want you guys to ask me questions below, specifically what you want me to answer on this particular quad. Now, if I put it side by side, and sort of a my dad can beat up your dad's spec showdown with some of the quads on the market. In some cases it's better, in some cases it's not as good as some of the quads out there. But what I'm trying to get across in this clip is that the specs that matter are in this quad. And this is really something that's unique in the market space when I compare it to a lot of the quads I fly. So I want you guys to give it a fair chance. I promise you I'll do a lot of reviews on it. I'm not sure there's a lot of these out in the market space yet, but I know they've been released and they're available for sale. But at any rate, I'm going to spend a lot of time with this guy, so stay tuned. That's pretty much it for today. I enjoy putting these clips together like you can't imagine. So hopefully you find value in these things. Again, I'm very excited with all the subscribers we've had join the channel lately. A lot of great questions. You guys have really shown a tremendous amount of support, and that's really inspiring to me to continue to make these clips. So if you're having fun watching these, let me know that. If I'm doing something wrong, let me know that too, but be kind. Don't be thumbing me down and hating on me there. But if I'm doing something goofy, let me know that. But at any rate, that's pretty much it for today. So stay tuned and we'll have a lot more content for you very soon. And until next time, happy flying.